Hey everyone, and welcome back to Dinar today. I'm genuinely glad you're joining me for this discussion, because what we're about to unpack isn't just another routine update in the long narrative of the Iraqi dinar. This is one of those distinct moments where the atmosphere surrounding this story feels palpably different. If you've been following this journey for any meaningful length of time, you understand that intuition. You learn to distinguish between the constant background noise of speculation and the subtle, yet tangible, vibrations of genuine institutional movement. I must be extremely careful and precise with my language here, because nuance is everything, particularly when emotions are naturally elevated. When we state that banks are moving ahead of a timeline, this does not mean that every event has already transpired in secret. It does not mean a revaluation has been publicly announced and you missed it. It absolutely does not mean you should drop everything you are doing and rush to your local bank branch at this very moment. What it signifies is that internal, operational readiness protocols appear to be accelerating. This acceleration is happening ahead of the schedule that was being broadly discussed in public forums. This is a significant, meaningful distinction. The vast majority of people only ever interact with the public-facing facade of the financial world, the posted exchange rates, the teller windows, the headlines on financial news networks. But long before any of that becomes visible, there exists an entire parallel universe of quiet, internal preparation. This is where systems are stress-tested under simulated conditions, where software permissions and transaction authorities are meticulously calibrated, where compliance and anti-money laundering protocols are reviewed and tightened, and where operational processes are refined and rehearsed. This is the domain in which major banks truly live and operate. And according to multiple credible reports from individuals with insight into these layers, this is precisely where noticeable movement is being detected right now. Let's briefly re-examine why Sunday timelines became such a persistent focal point within this community. In global finance, weekends hold special operational significance. With major markets closed and transaction volumes at their weekly low, it presents the ideal technical window to implement substantial system updates, currency rate peggings, or policy shifts with minimal disruption to live trading and public commerce. Therefore, over time, a logical assumption crystallized within the dinar community: if a major adjustment to the IQD were to occur, a Sunday would be the most probable, operationally convenient time for it to happen. That logic is sound. History is replete with significant financial transitions that have occurred over weekends. However, here is the vital caveat: that is a preference born of operational convenience, not an unbreakable rule. It is a tendency, not a mandate. And institutional preferences can and do change when the assessment of urgency changes. When banks determine that waiting for the theoretically perfect calendar moment could create operational bottlenecks, competitive disadvantage, or exposure to risk, they will move early. They do not wait for a Sunday if the conditions observed on a Wednesday demand immediate preparatory action. This recalibration of timing based on real-time assessment is what makes the current update so profoundly important and worthy of your focused attention. We also need to address the terminology itself, as it is often a source of confusion. The term RV or evaluation is used with staggering looseness across social media and online discussions. For some, it conjures an image of a dramatic, overnight public rate change waking up to find the dinar trading at an exponentially higher value. For others, it represents a gradual, multi-year process of normalization and strengthening. For still others, particularly within banking circles, RV can refer specifically to the internal operational readiness, a potential change, which is a distinctly different phase from the public announcement of the change itself. So, when we discuss banks moving ahead of schedule, we are predominantly discussing that state of readiness and preparation. We are talking about the stage that must be complete before any public-facing event can possibly occur. Ironically, this is the most positive sign of all: sustainable. Legitimate financial transitions are built upon layers of solid, invisible preparation, not upon theatrical public announcements. It is essential that we redirect a portion of our focus back to Iraq itself, for that is where this story originates and where its ultimate authority resides. Iraq has spent the better part of the last decade engaged in a systematic, often quiet, rebuilding of its entire financial infrastructure. I am not referring to superficial updates or cosmetic improvements. I am talking about fundamental, structural redesign, comprehensive banking sector reform, enhanced compliance with international standards like those of the IMF and FATF, increased financial transparency, the development of a sophisticated digital payments infrastructure, and a deliberate alignment with global financial systems and communication protocols like SWIFT. All of this work has been progressing methodically, often away from the spotlight, while online debates raged about specific dates and fantasy rates. These structural steps represent real, measurable, and documented progress. They create the only foundation upon which genuine, lasting currency stability and value can be built. Now, layer this documented internal progress within Iraq onto the current state of the global financial system under tremendous stress from persistent inflation, historic debt levels, geopolitical fragmentation, and shifting economic power dynamics. In this volatile context, stable, resource-rich economies that are actively reforming their financial sectors begin to look increasingly attractive to international institutions and strategic investors. Not perfect, but attractive on a relative basis. Iraq, with its vast hydrocarbon resources and its documented reform trajectory, fits this profile more convincingly today than it has at any point in the last 20 years. Major global banks absolutely notice and analyze these macro trends. They model scenarios based on them, and they position their resources accordingly. This is not speculation. This is standard institutional risk and opportunity analysis. This leads directly to the principle of institutional risk management. Major banks possess an almost pathological aversion to being caught unprepared. If their models indicate even a reasonable probability of a shift in currency conditions, especially for a currency that has been the subject of such prolonged international focus, they will initiate preparatory measures in advance. They do not wait for 100% certainty, because in the realm of high finance, 100% certainty before an event is a fantasy. Instead, they prepare for calculated probabilities, and based on the converging factors of Iraq's internal reforms and the strained global financial landscape, the assessed probability of meaningful movement related to the Iraqi dinar is higher at this moment than it has been in a very long time. This recalibrated probability assessment is the engine behind the language of movement ahead of anticipated schedules. It is not about rule-breaking. It is about a rational institutional response to a changed environment. I want to speak directly now to those of you who have been holding dinar for years, or even for a decade or more. This part of the message is specifically for you. You have heard grand claims before. You have navigated the cycle of hope and disappointment, likely more than once. Therefore, your most natural, protective instinct upon hearing this update might be to dismiss it entirely, to file it away as just more of the same exhausting noise. I understand that instinct completely. It is a shield you have built for very good reason. But I urge you to exercise care. Be careful not to conflate healthy, intelligent skepticism with willful blindness. True skepticism asks probing questions. It demands credible evidence. It maintains high standards for information. Blindness, on the other hand, ignores legitimate signals simply because past signals were false. What is occurring in the current environment is not loud or bombastic. It is subtle, technical, and institutional. And in the world of high-stakes finance, Subtle is almost always how genuinely significant developments begin. The loud, public moments arrive later. Asterisk asterisk after asterisk asterisk, the essential groundwork has been completed in silence. One of the most common and costly mistakes made by individuals following complex currency stories is the assumption that if something isn't happening in a publicly visible, dramatic fashion, then nothing is happening at all. This assumption is nearly always incorrect, especially in finance. By the time the general public sees an official announcement, a rate change on a screen, or a policy shift in the news, that development is already old news within the corridors of relevant institutions. It has been debated, modeled, prepared for, and its implementation mechanisms have been activated, sometimes for weeks or months prior. So, when knowledgeable observers with relevant access report that banks are moving early, what they are fundamentally communicating is that these internal processes and preparatory actions are visible. Why active? In the world of institutional banking, this activity is the most meaningful signal of all, because it represents the allocation of real resources, and banks only allocate resources when their internal calculus justifies the investment. Let's address fear directly, because its presence is palpable in the community right now. Fear spreads at light speed during periods of uncertainty. Some fear missing a life-altering opportunity. Others are terrified of making a catastrophic mistake at the final hour. Many are afraid to allow hope to resurface, because the memory of past disappointment is still too acute. All of these fears are deeply human and completely valid. But you must understand this: fear is an utterly useless compass for financial decision-making. If a development is genuine, legitimate, and structurally sound, it will not require you to panic. It will not demand rushed, ill-considered decisions from millions of people globally. An authentic financial transition of this potential magnitude is designed to be orderly, to preserve trust, and to allow for deliberate action. Systems built on panic instantly collapse. They do not create lasting value. Therefore, if you encounter messages, sources, or narratives that are primarily generating artificial urgency without providing substantive clarity, that is your clearest signal to slow down. Step back and recalibrate. Real progress explains itself through consistent, accumulating evidence over time. It does not shout. It does not demand immediate action. It unfolds. Another critical nuance is that the global banking system is not a monolithic entity that moves in perfect unison. Different institutions have different risk appetites, different internal cultures, and different strategic priorities. Some are aggressive first movers, willing to position early based on strong signals. Others are deeply conservative, preferring to wait for multiple confirmations and peer actions. Some regional banks may wait to follow the lead of their larger correspondent partners. So, reports of major banks moving do not mean every single bank branch in every town is conducting identical activities at this very second. It means that leadership, treasury departments, and core operational systems at significant financial institutions are in a state of adjustment and heightened preparedness. This adjustment phase is, by its nature, largely invisible to the public until it reaches a critical mass that can no longer be easily contained. Let's revisit the Sunday timeline concept one final time, as it is a source of significant confusion. The anticipation of a Sunday event was based on logical operational preference. However, a preference is not a prison. Just because an event was broadly expected to occur on a Sunday, does not mean it is incapable of occurring before that Sunday or after it. Timelines in institutional finance are flexible planning tools, not binding contracts. When the underlying data and risk assessments change, the plans adapt in real time. What holds infinitely more weight than the day of the week is the actual, measurable readiness level of the systems involved. And based on the information available from credible channels, that readiness level appears to be increasing in a tangible, observable way. Now, I need to be absolutely clear on a point of practical action, because clarity is the best protection against error. The fact that banks may be positioning ahead of a public timeline does not mean that you, as an individual holder, need to take any specific action today, tomorrow, or this week. For the overwhelming majority of people, the correct and strategic action at this precise juncture is conscious inaction paired with heightened awareness. Your task is to watch developments calmly, to listen to the most credible sources you have identified, to stay informed through reliable channels, to ensure your personal documentation is secure and organized, and, most importantly, to work diligently to keep your emotions steady and balanced. That is the complete prescription for this phase. If you ever feel an internal or external pressure compelling you to rush into an action, interpret that feeling as your personal alarm system. It is a signal to pause, to breathe, and to reassess. Legitimate opportunities, especially of this scale, provide adequate time for thoughtful, measured response. Another accelerating factor in today's world is the sheer speed of digital finance. Global financial systems now operate at a velocity that was unimaginable even a decade ago. With real-time settlement networks, advanced digital ledger systems, and deeply interconnected markets, the implementation phase of a high-level decision can be remarkably swift once the final triggers are pulled. This hyper-efficiency is precisely why thorough preparation is so non-negotiable for major institutions. They must be ready to execute flawlessly within a compressed time frame, so, when we see signs of advanced preparation, it does not indicate that the final event is happening tomorrow, but it does indicate a serious institutional belief that the time frame for potential execution is contracting, and that being ready is now a priority. Let's talk about trust, for it is the commodity most depleted in this space over many years. That erosion of trust hasn't come solely from Iraq or its institutions. A significant portion has come from the ecosystem of misinformation, chronic exaggeration, unrealistic promises, and sources that prioritize audience engagement metrics over factual accuracy. Rebuilding trust is a slow, deliberate process that requires consistent honesty. A fundamental part of that honesty is being transparent about the boundaries of our knowledge. Here is what we can state with a high degree of confidence. Iraq has made measurable, documented progress in financial reform. Global economic conditions are creating a landscape where resource-backed, reforming economies may gain relative appeal. Major banks are intensely sensitive to timing and risk. Internal institutional movement has historically preceded public announcements. Here is what we cannot state with certainty: the exact calendar date of any public event, the precise exchange rate that may be established, or the final, net outcome for individual holders. Anyone professing absolute certainty on these specific points is not engaging with reality. However, and this is pivotal, uncertainty about final parameters does not equate to nothing happening. Uncertainty is the defining characteristic of transition phase and transitions, while inherently messy and psychologically uncomfortable, are the only place where genuine, lasting change can actually be born. I want to reframe the concept of patience, because it is so often mischaracterized, especially after a long wait. Patience is not passive surrender or checked-out inaction. Authentic patience is maintained readiness It is holding a state of awareness without succumbing to obsession. It is trusting in your own cultivated ability to recognize a legitimate shift and to respond to it appropriately when the true moment arrives, not at every false alarm. If you have endured this journey through its many cycles, you have already demonstrated that you possess a deep reservoir of patience. You have proven you have it. Do not abandon that formidable strength now. Precisely when the environment is showing the most credible signs of kinetic movement, this is the time your patience was built for. Finally, understand that banks communicate in two distinct languages. Their internal, operational language is technical, precise, cautious, and quiet. Their public, external language is delayed, polished, legally vetted, and simplified for mass consumption. What we are witnessing seeping into broader awareness right now are echoes of that internal, operational language. This doesn't indicate a leak of state secrets, it indicates that preparatory activities have reached a scale and intensity where they are becoming increasingly difficult to completely obscure from knowledgeable observers. That, in itself, is a data point of significance. Let me conclude with this overarching thought. The Iraqi Dinar story was never, at its heart, a story about a single magical moment. It was always, fundamentally, a story about a nation undertaking the protracted, difficult work of rebuilding itself and reintegrating into the global economic order with sovereignty and credibility. That process is measured in years and defined by sustained effort. When such a process finally approaches its point of critical mass, the tempo of activity does increase, but it increases within the guardrails of procedure and protocol. We may well be closer to that inflection point than ever before. That doesn't promise a specific tomorrow. It means the underlying conditions are shifting. And in finance, the environment always dictates the outcome. The environment sets the stage. The outcome is the performance that follows. Thank you, sincerely, for the time and attention you've given to this analysis. This topic deserves nothing less than calm, reasoned dialogue. If you found value in this perspective, I would be grateful for your support of the Dinar Today channel, but more than anything, I encourage you to take care of your own peace of mind, protect your emotional equilibrium, stay grounded in what is observable and verifiable. We are not in a moment that rewards panic, we are in a moment that rewards preparation, clarity, and steadfastness. And those qualities always favor the calm and the observant. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next update. Until then, stay informed, stay balanced, and stay ready.